Sorry to
Live.
Thank you, live.
Okay, we are live. We will call the Committee on City Operations to order at 4:05 p.m. Please let the record reflect that all committee members are present. If I could have a motion for the April 9th minutes.
So moved.
Proper motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public comment on agenda items. I don't see any members of the public present. We will move on to item number 5B, a resolution for Compost Awareness Week 2026. Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Would you like to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so this is something the sustainability group is very passionate about, is changing the way people think and sending stuff to the landfill. And so this is geared towards the city's composting, right? So picking up curbside, it's the food waste, which was under a pilot program that's been going for a year now. Tons of material diverted from landfills. And it's also for residents that compost in their backyard, right? So have that compost, the mulch their grass clippings, things of that nature.
Can I ask a quick question
Yes.
about the food waste collection? I do remember when the pilot kicked off and community members were able to go to a community center. I think there were a few community centers. You could get the bin, take it home, and then take it back to the location to drop off the food scraps and whatnot. But you just mentioned food waste collection. Is that still the manner that program is running? Or
Absolutely.
is that?
Nope, it's still the drop off. And it's expanded to a 6th location. So the same ones during the pilot program, be it Latz, Foster, Geyer, Schmidt, and Fire Station 1. Those were the initial, and then now O&M, when they started the drop-off center, they added a bin there as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, it sounds like you've had some really good success
Yes.
there. Any questions from committee members or comments about the effort for composting and sustainability? Councilmember Cost?
Thank you. So we've expanded to 6 locations, you said. I've seen the one at O&M. That's actually the whole recycling system there is nice.
Yes.
I was able to drop off some styrofoam. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are we looking to expand further than 6?
So there's been talks, maybe potentially City Hall, at least for internal use at City Hall, there probably will be.
Okay, good. Do we work with a nonprofit on this? Or are we doing this ourselves through our internal system?
Internal.
Folks, okay. Because I know the East Side has a composting group, but I think people pay into that.
Yes.
And this is free.
Correct.
Perfect.
I'm curious about larger composting efforts, and this just came to me as we were talking about expansion and that we're doing this internally. I know there are a number of restaurants that might face food waste or have food scraps to compost. Is there any discussion about talking to area restaurants? I know at the end of their evenings or whenever they're getting ready to get rid of those items, composting would be better than going to the landfill. So I just wonder if that's part of the discussion at all.
So we have not talked to restaurants or what have you regarding that, especially utilizing the drop-offs that we have, because we do pay Michigan Migraine to haul it to Hammond Farm. So there is a fee we are, as the city, paying for that. But there has been discussions with the school district on them joining in a pilot program as well.
That's really interesting.
I would imagine they probably have a lot of food scraps.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so. Okay, well, I certainly don't have any other questions. Anything else?
I would move the resolution.
Okay, that is a proper motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. All right, next up, item 5C, a discussion of system and safeguards in place. We have Chief Backus with us this afternoon to give us a general update and hopefully answer any questions we might have.
Thank you. Let me just pull up some notes here real quick. So I'm going to start just by talking a little bit about our LPD policy. So for those who don't know, we've actually had a license plate reader policy in place since 2013. This is not new technology per se. So Flock is a vendor, but license plate reader technology has existed on nearly every camera due to the analytics that are on it. So in 2013, when we had our in-vehicle cameras, we had license plate reader technology on it, which that's the reason why we originally came up with this policy. One of the reasons why you may not have heard of it back then is because just the technology itself, the speed of recognizing camera plates, the speed of referencing it into a database, and then pushing that information back out to an officer in a usable amount of time was not existent. Personal experience was that when this was operational, you may get an alert on your computer that says that you passed a stolen car or you had a stolen car in front of you, and it could be 5 to 10 minutes past the time. So then you had to go back and try to find that vehicle. You would be aware that this was in the vicinity, but figuring out where was I, where did I turn? I don't even remember, seeing this car and just knowing that it's somewhere in the city. So it really wasn't a viable option for us. So after that, we stopped using it. In 2024, we, myself specifically, in the city of Lansing and the police department, engaged in a contract with Flock. The reason we did is because Flock, obviously you have 10 years difference. Technology, the efficiency of it doubles so quickly. When it came to, when we brought it in 2024 through a state legislature grant that was designed to put up Flock around the capital area, it was much more relevant in terms of speed and ability to actually do something, to have some type of impact using it. So let me touch a little bit about what our policy says, just so you understand some of the safeguards that are in place. So the first part is that our license plate reader system is only authorized for official business, and that misuse in our policy is subject to disciplinary and potentially criminal sanctions. So there could definitely be situations with both of those where we would end up doing an internal investigation or something that's criminal. And I think that just depends on, are they doing this without the right training, or are they using this as some type of initiative for a non-work related issue, potentially personal? And that's where we would go into the criminal realm of things. One reason that we're able to track that is from very detailed audit logs. If anybody wants to use the Flock system to look up a plate, you have to not only put in the plate information, but you have to be signed in, and you also have to designate a reason, and that reason requires a case number. So I can't run a plate just because I don't like white Cadillacs. I actually have to have a criminal complaint to run an inquiry on this particular plate. And then what it shows me is the number of locations from our designated cameras where that plate was picked up, and it could be nowhere. We have a protocol for access. As of right now, we have right around 191 people that are sworn officers, but we also have 40 different civilian spots, and all potentially have the ability to access this system in their job roles, such as an analyst. We only allow access to 52 people. And that number isn't necessarily limited because we're saying that only 52 people deserve. It's because we have a requirement that anyone who's going to use this system has to go through appropriate training to know what to do and what the requirements are. And a lot of that is understanding what you can use it for, what you can't use it for, and also understanding the purpose of the audit trails. I was encouraged because as I was preparing for this and looking at the specific people who have been trained and are authorized to use it, I did see that with 2 recent retirements, both 2 people had been taken out of the system. So it's always good to see that the person who is managing this, which is our data manager, Lion Roberts, that he is actually keeping up on when people are leaving the department, that he's taking away their access. To identify several specific crimes that we encourage people to use our license plate readers for. Those are listed as stolen vehicles. And again, I'd like you to listen to this list and think about the possible applications and just see, and from the applications, get an idea of just how valuable of tools they can be for, while I say criminal, some of these are non-criminal, but specific functions of the police department. So stolen vehicles, Amber Alerts, missing or wanted persons, crimes against persons, felony crimes, and for official ongoing investigative purposes. That's the limit of the number of times that we can use license plate readers for, those are the circumstances that we can use license plate readers. Some of the other things, and I think this goes with what are the safeguards in place. So currently our policy says that ALPR data, license plate reader data, will be retained for 90 days. While the policy says that, I also want to say that this is currently in review to update this because it's been some time. We are only retaining license plate reader data for 90 days. I'm sorry, for 30 days. Some of that has to do with the volume of storage, and storage is expensive. The other part is that with our contract with Flock, and I believe every contract that I'm aware of, it defaults to 30 days. And 30 days is essentially you use it or you lose it. If you haven't figured out that you need it in 30 days, most likely you don't need it. So there's no point in keeping this information on file. And again, part of that goes to the expense of storage. So we really can't afford to do it longer than that. So where it says 90 days in our policy, the only reason it doesn't say 30 is because it's currently on the list to review and update, and it will go to 30 days. The other part that we have is about data sharing and the administration of it. And that's a very hot topic. So just know that we do consider this for official use only. So it is limited to the positions or for the purposes that are stated in our policy. The other part, it can only be shared for legitimate law enforcement purposes. I'll go one step farther that says that if we're going to share information, an MOU must be in place. And we currently have no MOUs. I know one of the topics that's been seen nationally is that federal agencies are asking for access. But one of the things that we have the ability to do, and it is engaged, is in our Flock platform, we have disabled the idea that you can run Flock plates. So when it says, here's the reason for, one is immigration, but the second is actually reproductive health. And that's something that I haven't heard a lot in the news, but it is a valid concern, especially in different states down south. So we have both those options disabled. Just a couple, if I could read some statistics for you. Again, this is information that we want people to know that we have it. We want people to know that we're using it. So we do have 7 different locations, and we don't conceal them. If you're driving around in our city and our neighboring jurisdictions, you're going to see these cameras on posts. And our 7 locations, and if you'll notice a trend, it's MLK in 496, Penn in 96, Cedar in 496, and then we have Michigan and Pennsylvania, Oakland and Pennsylvania, and Holmes and MLK. Majority of those are centered around the North End or downtown Lansing. So remember that the majority of our cameras, or the 26 cameras we have in the 7 locations, were purchased with a state of Michigan grant that was designed to increase security around the Capitol. This was a result of events from 2020 time period, where they wanted to ensure that all the local partners around state of Michigan and state government were also increasing their abilities to help control some of the different safety concerns. I'll comment specifically on the cameras that we have at Penn and 96 and MLK and Holmes. Those were specifically placed there because they are 2 of the busiest intersections when we do what's called DDAX, data-driven, I forget the acronym what it stands for, but essentially it's if you take the nexus of most prominent location for accidents and the most prominent locations for crime, those 2 intersections are where we are the busiest, accidents and crime. So MLK and Holmes, very busy area for both of those. But the other part is when you get down to Penn and 96, you have Meyer there, which is a big driver for our calls for service. And that's one of the reasons that's there. So I mentioned a little bit about the contract being from 2024. It's a 2-year contract. I mentioned about some of the different things that we've disabled, but I also want to mention some of the different successes that we've had. And while I can't contribute all of these to our license plate readers, 6 of our cameras are funded through the Auto Theft Prevention Act. In the Auto Theft Prevention Act, when we report our overall vehicle thefts and recoveries, for last year's state of Michigan fiscal year, we reported that we recovered 391 vehicles or vehicle parts, made 97 associated arrests, And the estimated value of those recoveries was over $1 million. So that's just for the auto thefts. While I don't have the specific numbers to tell you, I can tell you that the ALPR system has become a tool that is used in all of our violent crime investigations. And on a number of occasions, as we think about how mobile crime is and how often vehicles are associated to crimes, it's one of our first checks when we start thinking about crimes occurred, a vehicle was involved, and was there any type of ALPR information where we could get a description of the vehicle? We get a lot of descriptions of vehicles, but when you get the actual plate from that vehicle that connects to a person, it makes a significant difference of what you can do with that information. It's the difference between knowing that we have a make, model, and color that is going to be in existence in a lot of places and actually attaching it to a name and a physical address. And I think you can imagine what we can do, the differences between those two systems, those two responses. One of the other things I've talked about that we don't share, however, there are agencies that do open up their sharing. And because this is a network, one of the things that I'm very cognizant of and I'm cautious about is how we've benefited from other people's system. We've actually arrested one of our homicide suspects within 24 hours because when we looked for the license plate in Lansing, the license plate showed up immediately in Kalamazoo. Immediately, so real time. We were able to see that the vehicle that we needed in relation to this crime was sitting in Kalamazoo. And ultimately, the people that were arrested by the city of Kalamazoo ended up being our charged suspects in our homicide. So this is information that when used correctly, there is a direct benefit. So I've listed off the different applications for the type of crimes. So I'm thankful that you put this on your agenda because I know that there are fears for surveillance and there's fears in data collection. And it's incumbent upon law enforcement to reinforce the idea that there's benefit and it can be used responsibly. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. I do have some questions, but council members, Costa, Martinez, do you have any questions?
I have a question. I'll let you roll first.
Okay. You've already answered some of my questions. So what I had intended to ask is, do you have an internal policy governing use? And you do. I mean, it seems very thorough. But as you were talking, I jotted down some notes. The data that is contained, and I understand you're on a 30-day retention currently by practice. Does the system, I'm not exactly sure how this works. Can data be exported from Flock for any reason? And the reason I ask that is, I mean, investigations can go well past 30 days and often do. So if that data is gone after 30 days in the system, how does that work for you? Like when you have lengthy investigations?
The answer to your question, can we retrieve data after 30 days? The answer is no.
Can you export data at any time from the Flock system?
When we talk about export data, we can't actually take a physical removal of it. But what potentially you're looking for is when we have anything that's relevant to our investigation that we're going to use, we do have to flag it and we do have to save that specific piece of information
Okay,
because it will be evidence in a criminal trial. And so then we're obligated to keep it.
thank you. And then that is maintained then past that 30 days. It's not automatically deleted from the system. You do have that.
And that's on the relevance is case by case and it is for the specific incident. So example, if I'm looking for that white Cadillac and I find that white Cadillac, I'm saving that white Cadillac. I'm not saving hours before or after. It is just simply that one. Everything else gets dropped.
Thank you. And then you don't currently have an MOU on file. Is that correct for any type of data sharing?
We have no data sharing agreements with anyone.
Is there, and I know this is an open-ended question. Can you think of any reason that you may decide to enter an MOU? Is there any reason that could be beneficial to your,
There absolutely could.
do?
There is absolutely reasons why we could justify an MOU with other locations. And the example that I gave from Kalamazoo would be a good one. But think about locally with the idea that our whole area, Ingham County, Eaton County, we have their vehicles coming through our city.
Mhm.
So there would be some potential benefit to that. There is also the idea that, I mean, we can also assist people in their investigations. At the end of the day, what our policy says is they are for criminal investigations. So it's very clear that these are not administrative investigations. We are not going to be internal affairs. We're not going to be doing for administrative warrants, nothing like that. These are criminal investigations.
And then it sounds like you've had some success in terms of vehicle recovery, prosecutions related to stolen vehicles or stolen parts. I was reading an article in MERS, MIRS recently. I think it was yesterday or this morning. And they're, currently considering some legislation to cap the retention date at like 14 days or something like that. To me, that sounded like not a whole lot of time, and I don't know how useful or beneficial that would be. But I'm happy to hear that your current policy is 30 days. So I don't know how much you could get accomplished and flag, and then maybe get back to the work is not linear. So however that works out. So that's a question I was going to ask, but I'm glad that you agree with the 30 days. I think that's all I have for now, but Councilman Cost, please go ahead.
Yeah, so to recap what I did here, federal agencies don't have access to our system. And because it's a shared network, for example, they couldn't log in through, say they have permission from Kalamazoo and then see our stuff because we don't have that agreement with, I assume that it's separated somehow that Kalamazoo can't see it because they use a flock system too.
That is correct. We have to open our data up for other people on their network to see it. We have not done that.
Okay, and I assume the reasons listed below that you gave us, murder, car theft, things like that would be a possible reason for an MOU.
It would be a possible reason for MOU. I mean, we think about the idea that we have MOUs in place for emergency help, not only in the patrol functions, but in violent crime investigations. That there could potentially be something that falls under that. But again, this has been in existence for 13 years now. And the situations that we're describing have not come into play. When we revamp our policy to change our retention dates, but also to bring us up to speed with current program abilities, that's something that we will have to look at and decide whether we're going to keep it the same way. And if we decide to change it, what type of MOU is required.
And then with the, I know you talked about the safeguards, the misuse of the flock could lead to potential criminal charges. Without any specifics in the 2 years, because I was on public safety when you came, I think, to public safety to talk about these flock systems. Without specifics, has there been any instances of discipline because of misuse?
No, there's been no discipline for misuse.
And I assume that means no misuse has been recorded.
Correct.
In the, was it Lion Robert? He's the one that.
Line Roberts is our administrator, but also know that I'm considered an administrator on this system.
Okay.
And so we have different levels of access. So I am able to review the audit trail logs on this.
And are those reviewed regularly, I assume?
They're reviewed regularly. It's not scheduled, but we do have access to it. In fact, when you look at the audit log, it doesn't take long to get to the actual review of them, because it's not, with 52 users, it's not something that's used regularly all the time. So we can basically look at it and even say, based on this user and the search that they made, I know what that's related to. That's this shooting, that's this auto theft. So we have one detective who's assigned to auto theft. And so when I see his name quite frequently on there and the complaint number associated, he's associated to the review of the stolen vehicles. When I see the officers and detectives' names that are associated to BCI or our major crimes unit, then I see the complaint numbers and I know those are going to be associated to different homicides, firearm related, personal injury, things of that nature.
I'm curious, does the when someone logs in and uses the system, does that, as an administrator, does that alert you somehow that someone has gone into the system and looked up something?
No, I don't get on a per use basis.
Okay.
But again, based on the audit log and the people who are actually searching the plates, it just continues to, I'm doing it's a running list of everyone who's used it and
And it's
information.
attached to the badge and a case number, as you said. Which is what you said 2 years ago as well. So it's good to hear that that hasn't changed. I think the 30-day retention was what was discussed 2 years ago, I think. Though, would 14 days be too short with some of these? I mean, what you're looking for there seems like it would be a very short, like, need to know that immediately.
And I think you have to look at it in two different perspectives. When we talk about violent crimes and looking for that, 14 days would be sufficient. However, when you think about the value of a missing persons report, when someone says this person was last seen on this date, if we are speaking of juveniles, we get those notifications quickly. But when we speak of an adult, specifically when a parent from out of state calls us and says, I have not heard from my child, loved one for X amount of time, and it's been this much time. Think about the idea that even if I am getting this within the 30 days, a 14-day retention, I may only have the last 14 days. And what happened in the 14 days before that? So one of the things that these can do, when I listed off those locations, you can pick up patterns on them. So if I saw that the missing person was going past Penn in Michigan on their way to Sparrow every day for work or Monday through Friday, and I can see the last time this happened was Friday. So even though it's been 20 days since they heard from this person, I can tell you that they've still been in Lansing as of this date. That's good to know because that tells us, that gives us a little bit of insight is how long has this been an issue? And then we can also follow up because going a little bit down the rabbit hole, was our missing person driving this car, even though it's their car? It just tells us where to go to next. So next we can then piggyback in the way that we work with different technologies is I'll find the next camera, whether it's a private camera or a public camera, to see that vehicle and see if I can figure out who got out of that car. What I want to show is that loved one or parent is, yes, I can see a person. So I can see it's the person that you're looking for. So as of 1 week ago, we can say that they were in the city of Lansing. I worry about losing that information.
I guess the last question would be, obviously, it sounds like you look at policies regularly, see if they're the best. Has there been any discussion of oversight from civilians outside of the police department on this, like the police commissioners?
No, that hasn't come up. When I look at our policies, one of the things that drives our policy is our accreditation. So accreditation that currently stands at 90 police departments, and there's many more that are actually in the efforts. Our accreditation actually includes policies such as this that says best practices statewide, even nationwide, says that this is what you need to include. So that's a lot of what guides us. So when you talk about the civilian portion of it, it's not something that I've considered.
That's it. That's all I have.
Any other questions? I do have a few because as your conversation went on, the data that's captured and held for a specific amount of time, and this may be a question for law, is that FOIA-able information or is that considered to be part of an ongoing investigation?
It all depends.
Yes,
But I'll let you answer.
it does depend.
We have not, as far as I'm aware, had that situation come up yet, but I can take it back.
Okay, I was just curious. My assumption is that it wasn't, but I don't want to assume that information. So, okay. And then in terms of access, I know 50 some people have access to the system, but when I think about that, I think about, my history working in a prosecutor's office and having authorization and privileges to go into the lien system for a specific use, a specific purpose for that file. That's the type of usage that you're describing with this system, right? I mean,
It is
employees are trained, vetted, they understand the ramifications of misuse, all of that.
individual logins,
Correct.
individual passwords.
Those were the only remaining questions I had. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here. And thank you, Councilmember Cost, for bringing this item forward onto the agenda. I think it was a great discussion. All right, moving on to item 5D. Item is to be placed on file, but do we have any discussion or comments about the notice from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission as to the Morning Post Downtown LLC? I believe this location is attached to the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue. Maybe placing a new business in the restaurant portion that's directly attached to it. Anything-
You know, I'm, when it comes to places, you know, especially service places like this, I'm not as concerned as I am with, you know, the actual liquor stores. I mean, I'd love to see another business in there. And I think Bobcat Bonnie's had alcohol, so we're just basically replacing it with something else. So it's exciting to see though, that something could be happening there because it is a gorgeous building on Michigan Avenue in the first ward.
I agree. I completely agree. And that was going to be the only comment I had is that,
Clara's.
yeah, the previous. Yeah. Clara served alcohol.
Every time I'm gonna walk past, I'm gonna say, Clara, that's Clara.
I still call it Clara's, even though it looks
I do too.
different.
It's a placemaker. That's how you tell people. It's by Clara's. Oh, yeah.
So this item is to be placed on file.
Set, take a motion. Move to place on file.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes with no other business on the agenda. We are adjourned at 4:37.
I can stand at Clara's and I can say, it's at Clara. And both could be true.
Right.
Lives